There's a psychologist and a rabbi, interesting combo, Dr. Edwin Friedman. He's now entered his rest. Yeah. But he wrote a book on family systems. And I think this actually works in workplaces too. Family system theory is his kind of expertise in the psychological field. And he says that typically the most anxious person in the room gets all the attention. And I know you've seen that. It's the squeaky wheel kind of a thing. But he advocates for becoming what he calls non-anxious presences. So are you a non-anxious presence? So the swirl comes in. People are tired. The adrenaline is racing. They're angry. They're afraid, whatever. A non-anxious presence kind of rebukes and resets the system, the anxious system. And so for you to circle your team up and go, hey, everyone, let's think about this. We're bummed at the people who are coming because they shouldn't be here. And then someone who comes who should be here, we're bummed at that. Like, hey, come on. Let's be better. Your non-anxious presence reset the whole system. And so I know I'm in hospitals all the time, again, as sort of the spiritual first responder. And I know when a Christian walks in. I just do. Like, it changes the atmosphere in the room. They don't have a cross on their, their clothes. They're different. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for every room you've stepped into where it was a swirl, and I think actually Jesus, the story of him being out on the Sea of Galilee and the storm comes up and he's sleeping. First of all, what does it say about our God that a storm is raging and he can still take a nap? So there's something about the people of God who ought to come into the storm with that kind of equilibrium and shalom. But Jesus gets up and goes, peace be still, right? I think our job is to, whenever and wherever we can, we walk into the storm and we go, peace be still. And we embody the peace be still. And rooms galvanize around peace just the same way that they get stirred up around anxiety. And so I always think about Edwin Friedman's call to be a non-anxious presence. And it is a rebuke and casts out the anxiety that used to dominate the room.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's such a big part of our role as the ED providers, because people respond how we're responding. If we're freaking out, running around with our hair on fire, everybody else starts doing the same thing. And exactly the same thing with how we're responding to all these, non-emergent patients. Our attitude, everybody starts to mirror that. Yeah. And so it really is. And I'm as guilty of it as anybody, like jumping on the bandwagon of like, I can't believe how busy we are. Like, it's Christmas. Why is everybody coming in on Christmas? I was supposed to come in and have some downtime. Why is there so many people here on Christmas Day? But like, that's not the attitude that, we should be having. We should be like, this is our job. This is what we're here for. This is what we're paid to do. And if I'm reassuring someone that their sore throat's not going to kill them today, that's part of my job,
Man, I had this interaction with a patient the other day. And I mean, I don't know what that person believed, but it was, a run of shifts in a row. I met the patient initially when they were very intoxicated and saying a lot of negative things. And, we had to hold on to the patient for like days and days and days in the ER until they got sober.
Wow.
So like day one, mean, angry, drunk, wanting to kill themselves, yelling and ranting, took more time out of my day to help address that person than necessary. And when I finally get the patient again 3 days later, sobered up and just in a great mood and didn't want to harm themselves or other people now. And I don't know how I found out, but we had like a kid the same age, and I just got so mad. I got so mad at this human, and I am so burnt out with this human. And I don't know what it was in that moment. I definitely didn't like stop and pray, but it was this moment where I was like, I really felt the Spirit come down and say, this could be you. What kind of help and mercy would you want in this moment?
There you go. Wow. Jeez.
So all I could do is just leave and let the lady go. But it was, I don't know, kind of like circling back to what you were saying about burnout. It's there, and you've got to be a leader. and you've got to get refilled somehow. But I don't know. Focusing on like a mercy in that moment was so good. It was really hard.
Can I ask a question to all of you? Because have you ever watched any Aaron Sorkin series? He's a writer,
like West Wing.
Writer, West Wing.
Yes.
So West Wing is famous for the walk and talk. It's the bang, 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 bang. Everything moves so fast, and your lives and my life, we move so fast. And there's what I call like emotional whiplash, because I'm dedicating a little newborn baby, and it's the most recent congregant, and then I leave the neonatal unit and I go to radiology, get on the elevator, and 10 minutes later I'm with a lady who's in her last hour of life with her family gathered around, and I just anointed a little 2-hour-old baby with oil.
Yeah,
and prayed beautiful prayers, and then I'm going in praying, even though you walk through the valley of shadow of death, you'll fear. How did we get here? The emotional whiplash is real. So my question to you is, are there little habits that you've found in the middle of the walk and talk, bang, 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 bang day to stop yourself, to reset, to center, to before you open the door to go see that drunk who's been wearing you out for 4 days? Is there a practice that you have? Is there a move that you make to hit the reset button?
That's a great question. I have one that I try to do when I start to feel my stress level rise. I know I'm behind, half a dozen tasks that need to be done. When I walk to a room, I don't speed walk. I try to never speed walk, because you see the providers, the nurses that speed walk. I try to actually intentionally walk slower, given the exception of the emergent patient that is time sensitive, which is rare, right? You have time to walk to the next room. That they're not dying. In that circumstance, I try to walk even slower, take a couple deep breaths, and realize, hey, you're about to talk to another human being. And I'm not perfect at this by any means. If you work a shift with me, don't hold me to this. I'm trying, but I take a couple deep breaths and then open the door. And then I also try to sit down too. It's really easy to stand in the room and give the patient the impression like, hey, my time's super valuable. You got a couple seconds to spit out whatever you're going to tell me, and then I got to leave. But if you sit down, it doesn't even take that much time. It actually shows that you want to hear what they have to say and makes a bigger impact. So I try to walk slow throughout the enther shift.
Yeah, that's actually one of my big things too. I'd always tell the interns that are like, oh my gosh, it's like how fast you're moving your feet sets the tempo literally to your body. And so if you can slow that tempo, like the phrase I heard once, it might be a military thing. It's like slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Just keep that. And I think that that anxious, countering that anxious presence. I do that. That was a huge thing for me too. And my second thing would be, I always try to not forget. I have a very stoic countenance. And so I always try to make an intention to at least smile to the person, at least especially when I'm leaving the room, and look at them in the eye, just kind of smile and or just show like some caring disposition. And I found that kind of brings me some peace, and also I think puts that onto the patient as well. But it's pretty hard because I kind of have that, what is it, RBF?
Yeah, I definitely have resting bitch face.
Yeah.
I try to work on it. I don't want to come across as unapproachable, but I think when I'm focused, I think it gets worse. When I'm focused on a task, I think it gets worse. And then the nurses are less eager to come and approach you with a concern or whatever. And you're like, I want you to, if you're worried about somebody, please come and tell me.
What do you got, Lori?
I mean, I wish I had a RBF face. If anything, it's too
approachable. Leave me alone. Don't talk to me.
Please leave me alone.
I'm busy.
Do you have habits?
This isn't always dependable, but you always know the nice patient that you have, or the nice patient family that you have. So if there's something catastrophic that I've just walked out of, sometimes I will go and find them and round on them and just be just checking up on your family. How's everyone doing?
Catch their joy.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then go to what would ever be the emotionally whiplashing scenario.
Yeah.
Feel your compassion a little bit with someone who's nice. to then spend it on maybe,
right.
yeah.
And it's always like that one staff member too that's just like perpetually happy. You're just going, I don't know, talk to them for like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Because the time sensitive matters, but no one's that time sensitive per se.
I like the psychosomatic walk slow because it says something to your nervous system. It's like you're breathing, you're settling into, so walking slow is big. Breath prayers. So I think, so if I'm talking to medical professionals, everything happens so fast. So as a pastor, as a spiritual provider, if I could introduce you to the concept of breath prayers. So none of you have time to go tuck away for 15 minutes in the chapel. You don't have that. But come Holy Spirit, or your will be done, or Lord have your way, or come Lord Jesus. These little breath prayers that you can pray in a second are all day long, are really crucial to inviting the Lord into every moment that you step into. Sometimes I'll cross myself, and I'm a charismatic kid from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I used to think that was sort of Catholic weird. No, like, help me, Lord. Or I can even do it like that where people wouldn't know what I'm doing.
Like verbalizing it to yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm saying, like, heart, soul, mind, and strength, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, Lord, in every way I need you here. So I'm standing at the threshold of this door, and a door represents dynamism. I don't know what's on the other side of this door. I don't know what's going to happen. Boom, 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 boom. Come, Holy Spirit, Lord, have your way. And then you step into it. So I think there's some interesting
like
little...
that. Yeah, take a breath and that prayer,
Yes.
I mean, Thessalonians, pray without ceasing. That's part of that, right? So
Exactly. So all day long, you can be an intercessor, a sneaky, covert intercessor. And it's good for your people that you're ministering to, but it also continually resets your system. So go, okay, Lord, wash that one away. Next.
I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, and so one of the quotes that I would always use to tell some of the trainees.
I've got some Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Sure. Oh, there we go. Some, like that quote, I think in Return of the King, and Gandalf is like, "You are soldiers of Gondor. No matter what comes through that gate, stand your ground." And that's like, we are. I used to tell everyone, like, you are residents. No matter what comes through, you know what you're doing. But I think having that attitude with the fact that no matter what happens, the Lord is your strength. The Lord is in you and through you. Yeah. And so no matter what the outcome, this is an outcome based, from the soul perspective, it's not all just about the outcome.
One more little suggestion.
And you guys have some water behind you if you guys want water. And if Daniel wants a third one, I don't need one of those. So
most interactions that I have with people, and I hate this, actually, I try to do everything I can to counteract it, but people typically come into my space anxious.
I have so many thoughts on anxiety.
Okay. So they come in, I would like to think of myself as a pretty easy hang. Like, I'm welcoming, I try to be winsome, I'm interested in where people are from and their story and all this. But to go to the hospital, to go to the doctor's office, something's not working, to go to the pastor's office, the stakes are high. We have like this aura about us, or we have this institutional authority about us, and it comes with baggage. People have they saw their grandma die in the hospital, and now they're coming to a hospital, and hospital's not a happy place for a lot of people. The church or the pastor's office is scary. Am I going to get pistol whipped with the Bible? No. So I see anxiety right away when someone comes in. And so one of my ways of breaking through and connecting in the midst of my busy day, and I could have burnout camaraderie around the 3 appointments I had before. One of the ways that I break that ice and help them settle in is I go, "What's your full name?" And they're like, "What?" I go, "What's your full name?" Like when your mom was in the hospital and they gave her paperwork to fill out, it's going to go on your birth certificate. What did she write down? And they'd say, "Well, my name's Daniel Wilson Grothy." And I go, "Wilson, is that like a family name?" "Yeah, my grandpa was Daniel Wilson and I'm named after him." "Oh, where's your grandpa?" 3 minutes. It deflates the anxiety, and also it puts them in a place of comfort, like this person loves me, this person's interested in me. So you're coming into a room and you know it's going to be, and so you just do the quick, come Holy Spirit, and then you go in and you got your charts and you go, now tell me, what's your full name? And they're like, what? Immediately it cancels out the busy doctor who has no bedside manner, who isn't interested. They're just on the clock to make money for the machine. It immediately settles that. And they go, well, my full name is... Yeah, and they tell you, and there's a story there. And no one loves... You've heard the saying, no one loves the sound... or the greatest sound to the human being is the sound of their own name. So when you show interest, when you draw out of them their story, even if it's a 45-second engagement... Whew, okay, Daniel Wilson Grothy, now I'm looking at your charts here today, and you just engage them on their most personal level. And I'm telling you, it works 100% of the time to settle someone into a difficult,
it's like a really effective icebreaker.
Exactly.
You know, it's really...
What's your full name?
Yeah.
What?
No, I love that.
diffuses
That's
the
something
situation
super
a little bit.
simple and not time consuming that we can incorporate. Because we deal with a lot of anxiety. And I'm sure we see it, coming a mile away too. But it's, you walk in and there's something going, and it's easy to just ignore it or
like I feel like that contributes to burnout for everyone. The patient's burnout, your burnout. Are you going to keep chasing the anxiety that's in the room, or are you just going to cut it?
Non-anxious presence resets the room.
Yeah, and sometimes just like naming the problem. Okay.
Yeah.
What are you afraid of that's going to happen today?
Yes.
What diagnosis are you afraid of hearing today?
Yes.
And that's great to know, because it's often different than their chief complaint.
Yes.
The complaint that's on the board is not what they're concerned about. Oftentimes they have Googled something, or they've had a family member with something. And if you can address that at the beginning of the visit, you're not surprised with it at the end when you're saying, hey, you're safe to go home.
Very good.
Well, am I having a stroke? Like, no, none of your symptoms were like a stroke. But if you didn't know that from the beginning...
For 45 minutes, they've been worried about stroke.
Exactly.
And we could have canceled that out right away.
And it's so taxing and stressful and time consuming, and the bells and whistles and everything's going on. Yeah. I
think it's tough. I think, and I'm sure you get this as a pastor, is people are looking to you to fix their problem. And there are some people that walk in the door that I can say, I am not going to fix this person's problem today. Yeah. But how can I get them to the place that they're going to feel at least some reassurance or some peace about it? Like, this person's clearly anxious, I'm going to do the things, but how can we be that presence to like bring them down? And I think we're not going to bat 100 or 1,000. There's going to be people that I think sometimes you have to have the judgment, discernment, and the experience to say, this person's just going to be upset, and today is not the moment.
Not only am I not going to fix them, but I am also not their problem.
I don't know. I feel like, I heard it said that like for someone to consider to stop smoking, they need 10 interactions with someone that's actually describing a benefit.
I'm not saying we don't try. I'm saying it gets to a point where,
But I've been trying to like twist the thought and be like, maybe I'm the 7th person along the line that's going to help like push this person into a better place. Yeah. I might not fix I probably will not fix their problems today, but let's just tack this in on the end so I can keep my mind fresh. Maybe this will move them to the next person, that will move them to the next person, and then
it'll break through.
It'll break through.
Yeah. I think in terms of like triage, as like some meetings are just going to be in the moment triage. Like, let's help assess the threat and make sure their vitals are okay. And then I'm able to talk to them about the long-term plan. So an example, a couple will come into me and they've been fighting all weekend, and their kids are listening to mom and dad drop the F-bomb, and late night, it's difficult, right? And finally something in their heart breaks and they go, we got to reach out to pastor. And so they come in and they want to be fixed today. So I'll say, all right, let me put some parameters in place, some rules in place. You can't have a big conversation after 9 p.m. at night because you guys are dumb. So stop that. You can't do that anymore. So talk in the day, talk when you're not hungry, help them triage so that immediately they're not fighting the rest of this week. But then I'll say something like, and I try to have better bedside manner than this, but sometimes they force me, right? So I'll say, it's taken you 5 years to develop a bad marriage, and it might take you 2 years to work out of it. So there's a plan for that too. You got the 600-pound obese, patient who comes in and can't breathe and can't function. You're going to triage initially, but we do actually have a life plan for you that ends up in your wholeness if you want to pay the price for that.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to let you think that your little triage moment with me fixed your marriage. We'll get you settled for the next week or two, but let's go on the longer journey of being healthy. So I help people think through the initial moment of help, but also the long-term strategy for being well.
Yeah. I heard a really good analogy the other day about like how much your cup's overflowing to give to other people. Like if you imagine a cup on a saucer, you have to have a full cup, and then whatever's overflowing out of that saucer, that's what you have in the tank to give other people. And you have to have your own cup full before you can really give to other people. And I think filling your own cup, we've talked on this podcast about a ton of strategies. Daily exercise, are you hydrating, are you eating healthy? You need to be doing all these things as a baseline, or else your job is going to be very taxing on you, and you're going to have nothing.
Yeah.
If you haven't, worked on yourself and your family's stable, I feel like it's very hard to actually give to other people, and that's kind of got to be the baseline.
And I think your spiritual framework, not only for work, but for everything, needs to be sound. So, I always what are the 4 ways you can hear from the Lord? It's the Bible, prayer, circumstance, and other people. So how can you maximize how much God you are getting into your life with those things? So you need to be in prayer, you need to be in community, you need to be in the Word, and you need to be putting yourself in situations that are letting God work in you. And because that's how I think, because I love that analogy. I think about that a lot. Like, man, I'm pouring out my cup. No, I need to receive more.
Yeah.
So that way I can reflect. We're the moon. We're reflecting on to the people around us. So that to me, that just needs to be the foundation of who we are as believers, not just in the workplace, but that affects everything we do.
Do you guys have any strategies for how to not take these burdens home to your family? You've had a day like we've all had, I'm sure, where you're seeing a ton of death, you're dealing with difficult patients, difficult humans. How do you not take that home to your family?
Like people say this about men and women, but at least like waffles and spaghetti. Men are like waffles. I've heard it say women are like spaghetti. I'm not saying that per se, but I am definitely waffles. I compartmentalize. I have my.
I love spaghetti.
This is, yeah. No, where this is my work box. I'm putting this in this box, and I think there's a balance of not suppressing and burying something to where it's going to fester, but putting it into a safe, organized kind of place mentally, and then going home, and I'm home now. And there's things that like the 4-year-old deaths, the pediatric deaths are the worst. Those that inevitably you'll carry with you. But I think I just set it aside. And
I do take it home. I do take it. I've had to realize I didn't do a better job of maybe not taking it in its full totality home. I'm lucky in a way. I don't know how people are married in medicine to medicine, but I have a non-medical partner, and so it helps to digest it for me when I do bring it home, and I get to not use the fancy terms, and I do get to I don't. When I say the patient was intubated and then we lost the tube, he has no idea what I'm talking about.
Right.
He's but I accidentally CC'd this person on the email, and it's a little different.
But. It's taken a long time to really iron out how that looks like, but the taking it home and the digesting is a part of things for me. I've got to do it.
I think
I have to spread it around too.
Yeah.
It can't just be that one person every time.
Sure. Yeah.
I think I've been on kind of both ends of that spectrum. Like sometimes I come home and I do want to talk it out and say, hey, here's the really hard patients I dealt with today. And sometimes I'm like, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't know that one is necessarily better than the other. I don't know.
No,
Day to day, contextual.
Yeah, I agree. It's not like I love overarching ideas, and like this is the method we do, but yeah, sometimes the case is really bad and you don't want to talk about it for a couple days. Some days it's a case that, like, you know, thankfully it just leaves your mind. But then there's, you know, the ones that stick. Yeah, case by case.
I have found, I had someone ask me years ago, a really wise guy in his 60s, and he said, how do you make sure you don't take all the hitchhikers home with you? And I was like, what? He goes, you had 7 appointments today and one of them was happy. So you got 6 big stories that are like hooked into you psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. How do you make sure that when you go home tonight, you don't carry all those hitchhikers with you? So I have a really good routine. I have a 20-minute drive home and kind of walk through reflecting on the day. What did I see? What do I need to give over to the Lord? I know this is silly. A scream pillow. Have you ever heard of a scream pillow? Have you ever done that?
No, I've seen it in the movies.
It is the most cathartic there. It's so helpful. I mean, I'll let it rip. I'll scream into the pillow. I've got a trampoline. I jump on the trampoline almost every day. And I got to get it out of me. Exercise. Sometimes I'll call Lisa on the way home if there's space. And I'll say, I got to go to the steam room and just kind of sweat this out. So 20 minutes in the steam room. So just knowing what kind of day it was and knowing what you need to reset. Another thing is I don't shield my kids from my life. And I think it's actually unhelpful. If you bury it, it leaks out of you onto your most important people, right? So sometimes what I'll do at dinner time is say to my kids who are now 17, 15, and 13, hey, let me tell you about my day. And I obscure your version of HIPAA laws, and I'm not talking about names, and they don't know who I'm. But kids, I saw this today, and it broke my heart. And I walked into this room, and it broke my heart. And also kids, don't be unwise. Stay away from that crap. Don't take mushrooms from don't. Fentanyl from kids in the stories that I hear, I'm passing on to my kids. They're growing in wisdom, and they're also helping me process and unburden myself without me dumping on them.
Right.
There's a difference. I'm not using them as therapy, but I am teaching my children and talking with my wife and processing at the dinner table.